Hello and welcome to Move or Improve with Debbie. I'm Debbie Miller, your host for the show. And today I have a topic that just really makes my blood boil. I get so upset about it, worked up about it. It's all the different ways that seniors in particular, but people get scammed through fraudulent behavior by outsiders. And I want to make sure that I've covered all the items, and it's a lengthy list of ways that you can be scammed. So I want you to be safe. So listen up, and I have phone numbers and ways for you to report fraud. It just seems like every day I read or see something about a senior who's fallen for a story from a scammer. I just watched a show on TV, learned of a guy who had many aliases, and he was quote unquote married to more than 8 women. The wives found out about each other through a blog. So scammers like this create fake profiles on legitimate dating websites, and they use the profiles to enter into a relationship with you so they can get hold of your money and your personal details and your ID. And then they develop a strong rapport with you, and then they ask for money to help cover costs maybe associated with illness, injury, travel, family crisis. Scammers seek to exploit your emotions by pulling on your heartstrings, and sometimes the scammers will take months and months to build up rapport. One of the biggest scams is somebody who messages you through an online dating site or through social media. A favorite is to display a picture. I don't know why they picked military uniforms. I guess somehow you think that that's more legitimate. But I've seen men who are in oil and gas, and they work off a rig off the coast of Florida, and they'll string you along for weeks or months to build a relationship. And then the requests for money start. Perhaps it's a medical issue. Maybe they're stranded in another country. Their passport was stolen. The State Department won't let them leave, whatever. You may agree to meet the person, but they never show up. Or they meet you and say, oh, I'm in love with you, I can't live without you. That's what happened on the TV show I watched. The sociopath told each woman that he needed to get married to them right away. And the women fell for his line. But once they married him, he cleaned out their bank accounts and investments, and they were left penniless. So be cautious when you sign up for a dating app. I mean, not all of the men on there are bad, but you have no way of knowing if the scammer is really who he claims to be. Never give them money. And there is an online website. You can enter the face of a person who's interested in you. So if he posts a picture of himself, quote unquote, on the website, you can upload it to a Google app. And a lot of times it's not the person you're talking to. So it's called reverse image search. And it's rather easy. So you go to images.google.com and you click on the little camera icon and you upload the image that you have of the person, or you insert the URL for the photo, and then you hit the search button. So if you're using your Chrome browser, for example, you can right click on a picture and then click search Google for an image, and you'll see your results in a new tab. And those findings may very well surprise you. It may not be anything like the person that's posted on the page. But it's also time to talk about other types of fraud out there and steps that seniors can take to avoid them. Older adults have often accumulated assets over time, and they're living off their savings. They may be lonely, which subjects them to exploitation. And cognitive decline can begin in your 50s, so it hampers your ability to sense risk or that something may not be right. Many scams are perpetrated by criminals operating from foreign call centers, which are out of the range of the United States law. And state and local law enforcement can't do anything either. And they're thousands of miles away from the seniors that they victimize. Would you believe that older adults lose an estimated $2.9 billion each year to financial scams? That was according to a Senate Special Committee on Aging that released a report on the top 10 scams that target seniors. The most prevalent scams out of all the 1,500 complaints that they got on their hotline, most of them were Internal Revenue Service, IRS impersonators who conned people into coughing up tens of millions of dollars. After that, the runners-up are unsolicited phone calls like robocalls. sweepstakes, lottery scams, computer tech support scams, elder financial abuse, grandparent scams, romance scams, Social Security impersonation scams, impending lawsuit scams. Although criminals continue to invent new ways to separate older people from their money, law enforcement has had some success in the anti-fraud efforts. The largest sweep of elder fraud cases in U.S. history led to criminal charges against more than 200 defendants whose victims had lost more than $500 million. And before that, 5 call centers in India were taken down, and as a result, 24 co-conspirators in the United States were sentenced to prison in order to repay millions of dollars in restitution. Now, whether or not the scammed people ever saw that money, I don't know. But there was a recent situation in Florida where an insurance agent stole $100,000 from the husband and wife. The husband had been diagnosed with dementia, and the suspect was a 52-year-old. He was arrested, thank goodness, and he faced charges of exploitation of the elderly or disabled adult. And the victims, the problem was that they knew this person for 10 years as their insurance agent and quote-unquote friend. So when the wife's husband needed to be cared for in an assisted living facility, this insurance agent helped the couple to cash in a $200,000 life insurance annuity to afford the care. And then after the husband was placed in the nursing home, the suspect grew closer to the wife. He helped her open a bank account that she thought would be used to take care of her husband. But the suspect became so involved in her daily life that he could be considered a caregiver. And when the wife's husband needed to be cared for, he took over 2 months. He got the woman to write him 2 checks for undisclosed large amounts of sums of money. And he wanted to help fund a business that the accused agent co-owned, and for other businesses he personally owned. And it was just very sad because the husband is still in the nursing home, and she doesn't have the money now because this guy took it all, and the police are trying to get it back from the shyster, but don't know. At any rate, according to the Senate committee, scams persist because fraudsters gain the trust and cooperation of victims by harassing them or seducing them, as this poor couple. But the Senate committee urges people to hang up if you receive a suspicious call, and they do have a toll-free hotline for fraud, and that number is 855-303-9470, 855-303-9470. And the Senate Committee on Aging suggests remembering that con artists will force you to make decisions fast and may threaten you, so don't be taken advantage of that way. Scammers will often disguise their real phone numbers and use fake caller IDs, so you want to watch out for that. Fraudsters sometimes pretend to be a government agency like the IRS. I once got calls from a scammer who said that if I didn't give them my Social Security information, they would have the police arrest me, and I had to call this toll-free number, which was bogus, of course. But when I called them back, I did say that I was on the do not call list and that I have their number and I was going to report them to the federal authorities. And after that, I didn't hear from them because they know how bad the fines are if they are caught. Con artists will try to get you to give them personal information, like I just had somebody trying to get my Social Security number or your bank account number. Don't do it. The Social Security agency does not operate that way. Before giving out your credit card number or money, you want to ask a friend or a family member for advice. Don't do it. Just don't do it. And beware of offers of free travel. You don't want to do that either. So I want to talk to you a little bit more about some of the fraud schemes in more detail. Over 90% of reported elder abuse, that doesn't include, obviously, abuse that isn't reported, but reported elder abuse is committed by family members, often adult children or grandchildren or other relatives. The adult child may have emptied a joint checking account or performed physical abuse using threats, intimidation, or neglect of basic needs. Second, the isolation is a big risk factor in elder abuse. So some older people will withdraw from the larger community. They may lose the ability to drive, or they don't see as well, or they have trouble getting around. Seniors can be afraid of walking on their own and maybe having their purse snatched or being mugged. Just remember, if you get a phone call from a telemarketer, you have some options. Don't ever give them money over the phone. And sometimes you just ask to speak to their supervisor or ask to have them send you their budget of how much is spent on a program if they're doing a fundraiser. That often will take care of the problem. They'll hang up on you. You may get a call from someone from the police department asking for money, and when you investigate, you find out that very little of what is contributed goes to the police themselves, and besides, your tax dollars pay their salary, so why are they doing fundraising? Most of it goes to the telemarketing company. And mention as you hang up that your tax dollars go to pay the salaries of the police department, so why should you give more money? You'll quite often hear a click on the other end of the phone. If you're using a cell phone, you can block that number and never give out your credit card on the phone, ever. You may get a phone call or piece of mail or see online that you've won a jackpot, but the fine print states that you have to pay a fee or a tax. You may receive a bogus check that you need to deposit before you send a portion back to them. Stay away from schemes that require you to pay to claim your prize. They're bogus. According to the Senate Aging Committee's fraud hotline, IRS impersonators and robocalls are the top two, followed by lotteries and jackpots. So you want to avoid them. You might get a call from a tech support representative who tells you your computer is infected with a virus. Don't give them remote access, because then they can dig in your personal files or demand payment for their services. The Federal Trade Commission said that people age 60 and over were about 5 times more likely to report losing money to these kinds of scams than younger people. The median loss, meaning more, that's the medium, high, more is higher and lower, but the median is $500. Another scam you might get is a call from a grandchild. The scammer has gleaned information about your grandchild. They look on Facebook or Instagram and see information, and they can weave a story that might be believable. They'll pull you into an emotional trap. Oh, and don't tell your parent about the call. Don't tell their parents about the call. Hang up and call your grandchild yourself to check the status. That will tell you a lot. There's a scam going around that's having a recorded voice tell you that if you don't call a particular number within a certain time frame and give the person your social security number, well, the police are going to come to your home and arrest you. Well, that's bogus. The Social Security office never calls to ask for your social security number. They already have it. Just hang up. Don't worry, the scam artist won't bother to call the police or have you arrested. And there's scams like this involving the IRS. An imposter may call and threaten you with your arrest if you don't pay your taxes. Well, that's a bunch of hooey. Just hang up. Never, ever respond to an email that wants you to send them sensitive data. They will often download malware onto your computer if you do. If it is a real person calling, string them along by asking for their name and their company name, phone number, street address, mailing address, where the business is, what the license for them is. If they're scammers, they'll hang up immediately. And you know, go ahead and put your name and number on the do not call registry. You should be on there if you're not. It's a government agency and it accepts registrations from both cell phones and landlines. So there's no reason to not call. But to register